Hi everyone, my name is Wendy Yuan, and I'm going to be the speaker of this presentation today. The topic of my research study is about evaluating the level of biological contaminants in the classroom at Purdue. So first, let me introduce a little bit about the context and our motivation behind this study. As all we know, the coronavirus has been spreading in the US without signs of stopping. It is caused by SARS-CoV-2. Some of the reason why it is spreading so fast is that when the patient coughs and sneezes, speaks, or even breathes, the droplets containing virus can be produced. And the larger droplets can be even settled onto the surface near the source, which means the infected person. So in this case, the surface contamination is going to be a big problem. There is going to be an indirect contact transmission happening among students. Since those droplets can be settled to the surface and cause contamination, the students can be infected from contact with the contaminated surface. Because of the COVID-19, both fall 2020 and the spring 2021 semesters have been offered hybrid, in-person, and virtual classes for more than 45,000 students. However, according to the official data from Purdue dashboard, 5,867 positive cases still have been reported from the total tested people since August 1st, 2020 till this April. Although we have a very good Protect Purdue plan and our classrooms and instructional equipment were always cleaned with disinfection chemicals periodically during the semesters, does that really mean that we are really safe in the classrooms? Here's the thing that we need to notice is that the level of biological contaminants in the classroom has never been evaluated. But actually, this should be measured to ensure that the classrooms were cleaned properly. So in this study, we made those measurements, and I hope by doing this, the results can be referred to improve Purdue's plan for cleaning classrooms. So now let's move on to see what this study is really trying to figure out. So for this study, the specific research question we focused on is about which spot in the classroom usually tend to get more contaminated. The hypothesis being stated at the beginning was that the sneeze guard and the front row seats are most contaminated surface in the classrooms. Now let's see how the study was being processed. To choose the sampling spots, we selected 6 classrooms randomly in both chem and physics building because these 2 buildings are those that where students usually go to a lot for their classes. And next, to attach each classroom evenly with their surfaces, we randomly selected 5 spots in each classroom. We chose a desk in the front row of the classroom, a desk in the middle of the classroom, a desk in the back side of the classroom. We also chose the sneeze guard for the instructor and the instructor's desk. Other than that, we also randomly selected 3 restrooms in the chem and physics building and 1 toilet seat from each restroom to set a compare group, because we need to know how dirty it is for those spots measured in those classrooms. And we try to provide a biological hazard level reference for that. So now let's look at the tools we use to measure the surface biocontamination. In this study, we use adenosine triphosphate bioluminescence assay, which is also called ATP bioluminator. It's a tool that measures the concentration of ATP as relative light units in organic material and living cells, with fast and turnaround of results. The theory behind that is that the ATP, there's the ATP and the luciferin, which is a chemical that occurs in the living organisms, can react with each other and produce light. As we can see here, there is a little chemical formula that shows this reaction. So the concentrations of microorganisms can be measured using ATP bioluminescence assay because of this reaction. Because at the end, we only say how the light intensity level. And the higher light intensity means there is more ATP right there. And the higher ATP means there is more bacteria concentration. So that's why we use bioluminator to measure the biocontamination level. And for the light intensity, we use the unit that is called RLU, which is also means relative light units. For the sampling procedure, we first use sampling swab, which can be SuperSnap or Hygiena. And we use this to collect the contaminants in a square area, which is around 25 square centimeters. And then we use the ATP bioluminator to measure the relative light units value in the square. And then we divide the RLU value by the sampling area, and the final result is the final biocontamination level that we need to get. So here's the results. As you can show in the chart, the y-axis means the average biological contamination level. And the x-axis here shows 5 different spots plus the toilet seat spots. So as you can show here that the sneeze guards was the least contaminated spots because it only got 0.8 for its biocontamination level. And the student desk in the front and back rows have higher average number than the others. The front row desk has highest mean, which is 17 RLU per square centimeter. And we can also find that the 5 spots in the classroom were less contaminated than the toilet seats. And the toilet seat was the most contaminated spot, but some student desk surfaces were even dirtier than the toilet seats, according to the data we get in our field sampling sheet. So here's a little conclusion about this study. The levels of biological contaminants on the various surfaces in the classrooms were valued in this study. And we use ATP bioluminescence assay to measure the level of biological contaminants, along with SuperSnap or Hygiena, those kind of swabs. And all the surfaces in classroom were less contaminated than other on toilet seats. Also, the results also shows that the sneeze guard was least contaminated. Think about the hypothesis we made at the beginning. We expect that the sneeze guard and the front row is going to be the most contaminated spots. And yes, I think we made a good consumption because we also found that the desk in the front row and rear row are places get relatively more contaminated too. Also, some student desk surfaces were even dirtier than the toilet seats, which is according to some specific data we get in our field sampling sheets. And that's all we had for this study presentation, and thanks very much for listening.